Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined by Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein. Welcome, Fish.
What's up?
Well, what's up is the last Friday in June, and it's also the last weekend of the June recruiting calendar. And FSU is going to have their biggest recruiting official visit weekend of the month with 14 prospects scheduled to be on campus starting this morning and this afternoon. And a lot of storylines, Fish. Obviously, the recruiting calendar goes dead on Sunday or Monday night at 12:01 a.m. You've got 5 commits here on campus this weekend. You've got 2 of your 4 committed receivers. You've got 2 offensive linemen on campus after FSU lost 2 of their top targets to USC and Manasseh Atiti and Jason Zandamela. And of course, you've got 4, and on top of 4, 2 of your committed receivers, you've got another 4 receivers that are uncommitted that are on campus. So kind of unusual, interesting. It's going to be a frenetic weekend for FSU as they will host these 14 kids for the next 48 hours. So, Fish, I guess where we want to start, we kind of want to start with the committed kids, and I'm going to start in alphabetical order, which may lead us to a different avenue as we continue to go through there. But obviously the list of kids that are coming in this weekend include wide receiver TJ Abrams, wide receiver Camden Fryer, safety CJ Hurd, quarterback Luke Crowman, tight end Landon Thomas, all of whom are committed. And then you've got offensive tackle Jonathan Daniels, running back wide receiver Micah Danzi, tight end Kylan Fox, defensive end DAndre Holmes, wide receiver Jalua Solomon, wide receiver Zion Grady. Not Grady. Reagans, and wide receiver Elijah Moore. So a lot of things going on. So let's go back to the committed guys and start with TJ Abrams in alphabetical order, the wide receiver from Fort Myers Dunbar High School. Fish. He committed to Florida State on the 26th, has not been back on campus since his commitment, has been on several different campuses, including Texas A&M's for an official visit the first week in June. And last week, obviously, was at Florida for an official visit. And after his official visit with the Gators, Abrams told Jason Higdon from the Florida rival site that he would not be making a final decision on where he was going to attend college till the end of the summer, despite being committed to Florida State. And obviously, I've also read a report where he said he's 70% committed to Florida State, which I don't know how you gauge a commitment by percentage points. But anyway, and that is likely one of the reasons we are seeing these other 4 receivers that are on campus this weekend here, because we also know that LaWayne McCoy, after committing, announced that his recruitment was still wide open. So with all that, Fish, which is a lot to swallow, like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant, tell us what you think or what you know about TJ Abrams and where Florida State is with the recruitment of TJ Abrams.
Anytime a kid says that he's a certain percentage committed, he's supposed to have been committed now for a while now at Florida State, I kind of sit there and say, all right, this kid's recruitment is more open than he is committed. I'm not really worried about TJ if he decides to go to another school. I have Camden Fryer as the top slot receiver, and we're going to talk about him a little more in the state of Florida. They pulled in Vendravius Jacobs last year. So they're sitting in a position of strength at that position. So if TJ decides to take his services to another program, I think they're sitting pretty at that position that they can kind of pick and choose what route they want to go moving forward.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that they feel like they, as you well know, as you look at we haven't even talked about the fact that they're in it with Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman, as well as the 4 receivers that are uncommitted on campus today. So it certainly looks like Florida State and Mike Norvell's offense is going to have plenty of good receivers to choose from, regardless of what happens with Abrams. But that's why we always say, Fish, commits. It's good to get them, but they don't mean anything until they sign. Really, until December, because things can change, and it does look like at least something has changed with TJ. And to your point, the thing that you and I repeat on this show, it's not about what you say; it's about what you do. And as you said, I've said many, many times, show me where you've been, and I'll show you where you're going. And TJ has spent more time recently on other campuses than he has Florida State. So we'll see where that goes. But obviously a lot of good other options as we'll get to as we continue to work our way through our list today. You mentioned Camden Fryer. Seriously, I think he is a done deal. I don't think there's any reason to waver. I think he's going to waver. He's been committed to Florida State for a year and a half. Now, he has taken several unofficial visits to Alabama over the last year, including earlier this spring. He has not scheduled any official visits with anyone else. Obviously, he's a tremendous baseball player as well as a football prospect. He's transferred from Lake City. He's transferred to Lake City Community College, or Lake City Columbia High School, for his senior year from Sewanee High School. He did not participate in spring football at Columbia in May. He was busy playing baseball. Fish, you kind of already mentioned it. I'll let you repeat it or add any more thoughts you have on Camden. But he certainly looks like he will follow in his father's footsteps, Matt, and end up here in December or January.
Yeah, I think he's the number one slot receiver in Florida this year. And I think if he had gone to all these circuits to showcase his skill, I think that would have been bared out. I think you would have seen that more people would have talked about him. He's kind of become one of these he's one of these forgotten recruits because he committed so early. He shut it down. This is not something that's common in recruiting circles now, where guys shut it down after they commit. So these guys usually get forgotten about, kind of like Lamont Green Jr. last year. Like I said, I like everything about him. I think he's a great route runner. I think the kid has very good hands. I think he's one of the more polished receivers. He's a kid that I could see coming in and contributing as a freshman, and maybe not starting, but giving you, maybe 15, 17, 18 catches his freshman year, and you see the potential moving forward. But Florida State fans should be very happy with this commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, his uncle played here as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, as we've talked about several times, not every time we talk, but the impact legacies are going to have on reestablishing Florida State as a superpower in college football, because there are going to be more than a handful of them on campus by the time we get to 2024. The next kid on our list is safety commit CJ Hurd from Woodward Academy in College Park, Georgia. Now, Fish, this is a guy that I got to spend some time with in April at the Atlanta Rivals camp. At that time, he was talking about the fact that he may take official visits to Florida and Miami. That so far does not seem to be the case. I obviously, Rivals, we do not have any reason to believe that he's going to visit either one of those two schools. And in doing my research, I've not been able to find him scheduled to visit either one of those two schools. So they do seem like, at least from what my conversation with CJ in April, as we spring forward to the end of June, he seems to be more solidified than he was in early April, even though he was committed. But no other official visits currently scheduled. So you've got to feel pretty good about CJ Hurd.
No question. I mean, he seems kind of like he shut it down. That's a good thing. Now he could go focus on other parts of his life that are probably a lot more important than just recruitment, getting recruited. But I like CJ. He's another kid, very good film. And I think they got a very good prospect at a position of need. Florida State needs safeties. He's going to have the opportunity to play at Florida State relatively early if he learns their system. It comes down to, the time he puts in off the field and listens to the coaches and does what he needs to do. He'll have an opportunity to play. He'll probably play on special teams his freshman year and potentially have a chance to be in the two deep and get some starter minutes that second year. So I think CJ's another guy that they hit on, and it's a good thing that he shut it down, because you don't want to have to continue to re-recruit these guys all year. It's nice to have some kids that have bought in and they're like, all right, I don't need to be freaking my hand held for another 6 months.
Yeah, and of course, the next guy on our list has just been freshly minted as an elite level quarterback, and that is Luke Crowman, who really has become the leader and spokesperson for the 2024 recruiting class for Florida State, along with Cam Davis. They've both been very vocal in trying to help FSU recruit other players. He will likely spend as much time helping FSU coaches recruit kids this weekend as he will be recruited himself by the staff. But certainly one of the benefits, Fish, you got to think it's going to benefit Florida State to have him here this weekend with 4 receivers that could potentially end up at Florida State here that are not committed. And plus you got your 2 committed guys here. He was named as one of the best 11 quarterbacks in the nation for 24 at Elite 11 last week. That certainly has to, and generally, at least in my opinion, would have some sway with a guy like TJ Abrams or one of the other 4 receivers that are on campus.
I mean, he's shown himself well. This is a kid they kind of found, did not start. It wasn't even a start. I don't even know if he had played a whole lot once they found him.
Before last year, you're right.
Yes. So, it's one of those guys that got a lot of talent. I got to see some quarterbacks yesterday, and it's crazy. You see these guys, and some of them perform real well from one camp to the next one. They don't perform as well, so you get different reports on these guys. But the arm talent's there, the physical talent's there. He just needs to be developed. We talk about that word developed. It's popular on the message boards, but he's one of those guys that's, going to have to take a red shirt most likely, maybe get in maybe 2 or 3 games that first year, not lose any eligibility and be developed into a potential starter down the road.
Yeah, and of course, Landon Thomas is the last committed player for Florida State visiting this weekend. Of course, Landon famously flipped from Georgia to Florida State on the weekend of the FSU spring game. He has been a regular visitor to Florida State, has offers from every major brand in college football. He has been at not only elite camp, but a 7-on-7 camp. He has been talking about the fact that he wanted to get over here this summer and start working with tight end coach Chris Thompson as early as possible, which is the reason he's come to these camps. So again, another commit, one of the, out of the 5 committed kids here, 4 of them seem like they're totally shut it down, locked in for Florida State, and Landon is one of them. Currently has no other official visits planned. And he was asked early this month, if he'd been hearing from other schools, and his quote was, "Not really. I don't text them back anymore. I'm locked in. I just feel like this is the place for me." So, obviously Florida State looks like they're in a good spot with Landon.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we talk about what they say, not what, or what they do, or what they do, not what they say. If he's shutting it down and not going to these other schools on visits, you got to be very comfortable where Florida State fits. We've talked about it. Norvell until this year pulling in the 2 transfer portal tight ends, they haven't really found those guys to fit that offense that Norvell liked to run at Memphis, and now he's starting to get these guys that are elite level tight ends. Landon is the number 1 guy. You turn on his film, there's nothing not to like. He's big, he's fast. He looks like a big receiver on the field, but he has the traits of a tight end as well. So once he learns the position, this is a kid that the sky's the limit. He could be all ACC and an All-American type tight end at Florida State.
No, his film from his junior season was very impressive to watch. It's going to be interesting to watch him go. And he's another guy, because of his rankings and his name, will likely help Florida State draw other big-time prospects towards Tallahassee. Moving on to the uncommitted kids, obviously, Fish, you and I kind of, I'm not going to say disagree. We both have different philosophies on where Florida State is with its offensive line recruiting. We do know, based off what we've seen in the past, that they will go through the portal. We think a lot of colleges are going to continue to use the portal to develop offensive linemen, or to go get offensive linemen that have outperformed at the schools that they're currently playing at. But you do have 2 offensive tackle prospects on campus this week. You got Jonathan Daniels from Pensacola Pine Forest, and you've got Ty Hilton from Oviedo. You had 2 guys that Florida State was thought to be the leader on, Jason Zandamela and Manasseh Atiti, who committed to USC over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we know Daniels and Hilton were already priorities for Mike Norvell and offensive line coach Alex Atkins. This certainly, with the commitments of Zandamela and a TT, certainly seems to make these guys even a higher priority for Florida State. If there's any way that they could be a higher priority, how important is it that Florida State lock Daniels down? They're thought to be the leader for Daniels. Hilton, depending on what you read and what you've read and where he's been last, he seems like he's kind of at the conservatively wide open, and he had an official visit to Florida last weekend. But let's start with Daniels. Obviously, he's a guy that a lot of people, including yourself and me, think that he's at least a lean to Florida State. How big would it be for Florida State to nail this guy down this weekend? He's been to Georgia. He's been to Kentucky. He's been to LSU on official visits earlier this month.
Yeah. Based on attrition and what's going to happen at Florida State after the season, Florida State sits in once again a position of strength. They probably have like 13 to 14 guys that are going to return. They want to get that number probably up to 17 or 18, and you could do that with both the portal and high school recruiting. High school O-line recruiting this year seems a little less important for them from a number standpoint. You just have to look at the offers they've thrown out. There's just not that huge number of offers because this year it just looks like they've been focusing on a few kids. They lost Zandamela, which is a loss, but I don't think it's something that Seminole fans should really be concerned with right now. If Daniels decides to commit, I know he's listed as a tackle. I still think he's going to project inside as a guard, so that will take Daniels' spot. You look at the kid from Oviedo. He basically he's moved up the chain. We've discussed this before. I was told he was basically going to commit to Florida. It looks like they put the brakes on that. He visited officially, like you said last week. All of a sudden now Florida State's back in the mix. He's probably trying to make sure that he locks down a spot for himself. He's more of a project, but he is that swing guard tackle, another one. So they have two guys that could come in and play either position. They're only going to probably sign, 3 guys on the O-line this year, maybe 4 is the max. But if they land those 2, they sit in a good spot to basically swing for the fences.
Now, when you say sign 4, do you mean through the high school ranks and the portal by the time we get to?
I'm saying max would be 3. I think 3's max in the high school.
Okay.
And if attrition happens, they get heavy attrition, but we won't know that till after the season. Maybe they add a 4th, but right now I think 3 is about where they sit.
Okay.
And then you'll add 2 guys in the portal, 2 or 3 guys in the portal.
Well, our next guy we'll talk about, we'll move away from the offensive lineman. We'll go to really who I think is probably being recruited as a running back / slot receiver, and that's Micah Danzi from Florida High. Fish, obviously, you and I believe that after Cam Davis, we think Christian Clark, who just committed to Texas, was the next guy on Florida State's running back board. So obviously all these running backs have at least moved up a notch with Christian's commitment to Texas. Danzi's going to run track. He's got elite speed. He's sounds like he's going to go to either Florida State, Florida, or Miami. At least that was the leaders in the clubhouse in April. What do you think about Danzi? Where does he fit into Florida State's plans?
I think he's a faster version of Lawrence Toafili, and that you've seen how they've used him. He's been used as a running back. They've moved him out, used him as a receiver in some packages. Danzi's an elite level track kid, and there's very few of those guys. So when you have a shot at one, I believe you go after him. You saw with Kermit Whitfield, Kermit earned his scholarship helping return a kick in a national championship for a national title. These guys that can change a game on one play are very rare. He's one of them. Jerry and I believe Jerry had a chance to watch him with me. Or I at least had a chance to watch him in the state title game. I don't know if he's a traditional running back. He's more like, that's why it's good that he's listed as an athlete. He likes to bounce everything outside and rely on his speed. But once he gets to the edge, there's no one going to catch him once he's in the open field. He has different level speed. I think he's a legit 4-star prospect. That's where he should be ranked. And eventually, I believe that's where he'll end up. But he'd be a great get for Florida State. Like I said, running back, even if Cam Davis is the only running back in their class. I don't think it's that big of a deal. They swung for the fence with Christian Clark. I wouldn't just take anybody at that position. I think they sit pretty well at running back with the guys they have on their roster and who they have coming back. I think they're in a good spot. So landing Danzi, he gives you some versatility that if you do have some attrition or some guys get injured at running back, you could always slide him in there and he could be a running back. But he'd be a big-time get for Florida State.
Yeah. So we'll listen. And of course, everybody's going to say, "Hey, he's from Tallahassee. You should keep him home." Hopefully, if Florida, he's high on Florida State's board, and that's where Danzi wants to be. Hopefully, that works out. But I will say this as a precursor: it is only natural for a high school age person to want to get away from home. Sometimes they don't always want to stay home. They want to kind of branch out. And I understand everybody. Florida, there's been a lot of great football players in Tallahassee that have ended up playing football somewhere else. But, to me, it's only natural for an 18-year-old man or woman to want to extend their worldview. So we'll see what happens with Danzi. But I don't. A lot of people think it should be a no-brainer because he's a Tallahassee kid. I don't. That's not how my mind operated at 18, and I'm sure it's not how yours operated at 18 either. So we'll see what happens. But certainly a fascinating athlete and a guy that will play both football and run track in college, regardless of where he ends up. Fish, the next guy is a guy that I think Florida State felt really, really good about 4 weeks ago, and that is tight end prospect Kylan Fox from Grayson High School in Loganville, Georgia. He was supposed to go to Miami on an official visit, canceled that, ended up at Georgia Tech, has also been to UCF, and will finish off his official visits for June here at Florida State this weekend. Georgia Tech is probably is kind of the surprise here, Fish. He had not scheduled an official visit with them until the day he canceled his official visit to Miami. He will make his decision on July 4th, or at least announce his commitment on July 4th. But a couple of things that he said to Rivals.com publisher Kelly Quinlan after his visit to Georgia Tech. Fox on Georgia Tech, they want me to play receiver at Tech, and they want me to be a big body that can get out of breaks and catch the ball. They flexed out tight end type. Coach Key told me if I come to Georgia Tech, I have a chance to play right now. And it's a new offense with a tight end room that is not deep with 4 guys they are losing after the season. So that's their pitch there. Come here. You might have a chance to play as a redshirt true freshman and be a starter as a redshirt freshman. Fox on his UCF visit. UCF wants me as a tight end and H-back. The people there are like family too. They're going to the Big 12, so they have a shot at the national championship there. And probably the quote that Florida State fans will be most intrigued by. On Florida State, Fox said, Florida State needs to show out and show me why I should go there on that visit and show me a lot of love. They need to show me how I'm going to be used in the offense. So that was the tone of his comments about Florida State were certainly a little bit different than they were 4 weeks ago when this seemed like a virtual done deal.
Yeah, that's not a very good thing that he said. I just listening to that is kind of concerning, especially for a kid that you were leading for. It seems like some of the negative recruiting has gotten to him. I think this is going to come down to how badly FSU wants him. They sit with a lot of tight ends in that room. You look at I have a chance to play right away at Georgia Tech. I don't, as a recruit and a parent, it sounds good, but it also tells me they're not very good.
Yes,
football team, and I'm 18, and they're basically handing me the starting job. That's not always a good situation. You look at the schools he's choosing from. Florida State's by far the best program, and this kid's is a very talented tight end. I think he's right behind Landon 1-2 in that state of Georgia. But you have to be concerned with the other kids, schools that are recruiting him, that maybe he's starting to realize that there's opportunities other places that are better for him. You wonder if somebody got in this kid's ear and kind of steering them away from Florida State right now. And we've discussed this before. Grayson has not been kind to Florida State. So it's like, this is a kid that they bled for, and then all of a sudden it's starting to look like it's trending other ways. You want to get him locked up this weekend and finally commit. I think if he doesn't come out this weekend committed, you got to wonder if he's going to one of these other schools.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. And like I said, he will make his announcement on July 4th. He's going to have some kind of party for his announcement. But certainly this is a little bit more intriguing than it was a month ago when we thought this was just a matter of time. And he was doing his due diligence, but Florida State was definitively in the lead. Got a defensive end on campus in D.D. Holmes from Gonzaga High School in Washington, D.C. He is a 4-star prospect, 28th ranked strong side defensive end in the country for 2024. Now, Jamari Flagg is committed to FSU and is listed as a defensive end, but I'm of the belief that he will be a defensive tackle. He looks like a defensive tackle.
He will never see a down at Florida State at DM. We'll put that to rest right now.
So, as much as listen, Florida State gets a lot of credit for developing edge rushers because they have been very successful at it. We're both a little bit surprised that they have not nailed down a defensive end prospect yet on a commitment. Holmes has been to Maryland, South Carolina, and Rutgers on official visits already this month. Where do you think Holmes is on their board?
First off, he'd do everybody on the FSU message board a favor if he could just pull the trigger so they could exhale. These defensive ends have become like unicorns on the Florida State message boards. They want a defensive end committed. DD, do us all a favor, commit, make our lives easier so we don't have to keep answering the same questions about the defensive end position. But this kid's got the tools, 6'6", 240 pounds. I'd like to see him in person because you want to make sure that he can continue to grow weight, put on weight. If he's 6'6", 240, you're looking at a guy that's going to be 275, 280 pounds, probably a strong side defensive end. At the next level, has the tools. I've always said I'm biased towards Florida, but I will say this: DC and that Maryland area produce a lot of talent. Florida State's had a lot of good luck with those type of kids when they have been on played at Florida State. You want to land these type of guys. They're the closest thing to what you recruit in the Southeast and what they fit. He looks like another guy that could be in that Jared Verse type mold, big, tall, long athletic kid that can run, get after the quarterback. They need a DN in this class. And if they could put they may have to put a little pressure. I think that's part of the thing is where maybe they've been a little unfortunate with some of these kids is I think Florida State and Norvell staff kind of let these kids, they don't put that pressure tactic on them with a lot of these kids, and that's why you see these kids go to other campuses and they commit. They may have to put a little pressure on this kid this weekend. They need a defensive end commitment, and this would be a good start.
Yeah. All right, so now let's do a little math, a recruiting math. All right, so depending on how you do the math, FSU already has either 3 or 4 wide receivers committed. TJ Abrams, Camden Fryer, LaWayne McCoy, and BJ Gibson. BJ can play defense, and I think McCoy can too. So fuzzy math, right? Now Jeremiah Smith left here last weekend saying he'll be back early this week. He'll be back for an official visit. Cam Coleman has Florida State in his top 8, ranked as the 4th best receiver in the 2024 class. Mm-hmm. Now you have James Madison on campus from St. Thomas Aquinas, the 37th ranked receiver in America. Then you have Elijah Moore, another 4-star receiver who's been on a visit to Ohio State, official visit. Again, the math with Madison and Moore is the same. Then you have Zion Reagans, who's a really fast guy, by the way. The more research I did on him, he is the two-time 5A state champion in the 100-meter dash in Georgia. And then, of course, he's been already taking visits to Georgia, Oklahoma. And then you have Jalewis Solomon from Schley County in Ellaville, Georgia. Now, he is another four-star kid. He's another kid that can play receiver or DB. He's being recruited by a couple of schools, Kentucky as a offensive player. And I believe South Carolina is an offensive player. He's going to take an official visit to Auburn later this fall, so he's certainly not going to make a decision this weekend, you don't think. But I say all that to say this, Fish. What's going on at wide receiver at Florida State? And how do you rank all these guys?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you notice with all these guys that they're recruiting now, they're all rated higher than the guys that are already committed or should be rated higher. And I think we've talked about this and discussed it multiple times. Recruiting at a position of strength. You get guys locked in early. They may decide to go somewhere else, and it gives you also the opportunity to also go in your own direction if you want guys that are better. And that's the situation I like. These guys, when you look at James Madison, the Cam Coleman kid, you look at Joshua Trader, everybody keeps going, will you have a spot for these guys? Yes, these are elite level wide receivers. Trader's one of those guys. These are difference makers, and you're always going to have a spot for them. But if you recruit at a position of strength, and that what I'm talking about is you get a couple commitments early, and you know what? Worst case scenario, those guys are going to be very good players for you. But that next situation, when you start to become one of the elite programs, and that's where Florida State's trying to get, you get those guys committed early, you give yourself some leeway to still go out and recruit above that level, and the pressure's off because you already know that you have these guys already in the fold. And if you want to go above and beyond them, you could still go after them. But worst case scenario, you don't land those guys, and the guys that you have are still pretty good. So I think Florida State set themselves up to add to the wide receiver room. You start landing these guys that they're going after, a Trader or a Cam Coleman, you add those two guys to what they got last year, all of a sudden you're talking a 2-year span of recruiting for Florida State at that position that they haven't had in over a decade or two. So I like where they sit. They've done a very good job of handling the wide receiver room. This is crazy because 2-3 years ago, Florida State couldn't land even decent wide receivers or get them on campus like they are now. They're in a great spot, and I think it's, at the end of the day, they're going to have a very good situation come January or February.
Yeah, and Fish, now how much do you think is forward thinking? And I mean it in this way. All right, so we're in a new era of college football recruiting. You've got NIL, you got the transfer portal, you got unlimited official visits. All right, so you've got 4 receivers committed. Let's say they all stick. Is any of this recruiting being done moving down the road a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, so that you have these relationships with these kids in case a portal opportunity opens up for them for whatever reason, or for Florida State for whatever reason? Do you think we'll see people start to do things like have 4 committed receivers and continue to bring kids in because you want that relationship on down the road?
Listen, if a kid's an elite kid and you finish in second, it's not a horrible situation anymore because now you, like you've talked about or discussed, you've built that relationship. You look at Deion Coleman, Florida State recruited him heavily. He was one of the guys. They took Destin Hill instead. That relationship set them up for 2 years later to land that kid. That's why they landed him. If they hadn't have built that relationship with Deion, I don't believe he's on their campus right now getting ready to play for Florida State in the fall. I just think that situation would have gone south. They probably would have never got him on a visit. He probably would have either gone to one of the other programs, whether it was Ole Miss or stayed in the SEC. But building that prior relationship, getting him on campus, they've done a very good job. That's where you look at most of that, those portal acquisitions happen, is a lot of those guys have prior relationships with that coaching staff. It's not just by coincidence. Yeah, they've done a very good job in the portal, but they've also done a very good job of building relationships with those coaches or their contacts that when the time comes for them to transfer, that they still have a legit shot at landing.
Yeah, Yeah, listen. I think that's good. There's going to be a new way of thinking on some of this, these unofficial visits with the portal, and maybe even a guys even further down on your board. Maybe you don't want to offer him for this class, but see how he develops, but you want that personal relationship. So, I think the way recruiting is done is going to be, you might have more of a balcony view with some kids than you do an immediate, hey, we want you here now type of thing. All right, Fish. Well, listen, it's been a really busy July. We have Osceola's Bob Ferrante, Jerry Cutts, Kurt Weiler down on campus now. We have a live thread going at theosceola.com or floridastaterivals.com. That'll get you to the same place. But we will be doing a live thread throughout the day as the kids are scheduled to arrive on campus anywhere from 10 a.m. to around 3 p.m. Obviously, we cannot talk to the kids once their official visit starts. Most of it will be video, pictures of the kids, and then, of course, on Sunday we'll be back out at the Moore Center to try to grab as many of the 14 official visitors as we can to do video interviews, which we will obviously turn into written articles. But if you want to follow the live thread, please go to floridastate.rivals.com. Of official visits, the official visit weekend, and Fish, always appreciate your expertise and talking our way through these recruiting weekends and kind of where Florida State sits and where the kids sit with the Seminoles. But for the Seminole Sidelines, my name is Pat Burnham. Charles Fishbein will be back with me next week, and we look forward to seeing how this weekend pans out for Florida State. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you on Monday.